Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, we've got Tim Ream, Henry Hill. How are you, mate?
Yes, I'm great. I'm looking forward to whatever Chris is about to come out with next, I must say. He's about to tease me about the way I speak. But yeah, no, I'm excited. It's good to be back on Continental
Excellent.
Club.
Hamill, you all right on this Thursday morning?
I have no idea what Henry means. He's got lovely diction, great tone, speaks the King's English. All positives for me. How are you two fellas? I'm excited to be on a panel with such knowledgeable and erudite guys.
Oh, look at this. I love this. What
That's all right.
Yeah.
Training you well.
All very good, thank you. All very good. Excited for the episode because we are doing predictions for European football, because at CVMBZ has asked, what are your predictions in the top 5 leagues? Obviously, La Liga resumed last weekend without the big dogs. Liga is already back in action, but Serie A and the Bundesliga officially start this weekend. And we're going to start in Italy, actually, because it feels like it could be the most exciting league to watch this season in terms of a potential new winner, because obviously Juve have dominated for the last 9 years.
Boring.
But last year wasn't a very good campaign for them. They lost 7 league games, their most since 2010-11, and finished with 83 points, which was their lowest since that same year when they finished 7th. And obviously they lost in the last 16 of the Champions League, which has been their aim, to win that competition for the last couple of years, and really since their last triumph. And that cost Maurizio Sarri his job. He's been replaced by Pirlo in his first managerial job. Didn't even have his coaching badges when he was appointed as well. So it feels like there could be a changing of the guard in Italy. But Chris, what have you made of Juve's transfer business?
Yeah, we have to start with them. As little as I want to actually speak about Juventus, they've had a pretty quiet window so far, haven't they? They've offloaded some players, which was necessary, as they were stockpiling a lot of players in certain positions, particularly midfield. Blaise Matuidi's left for Inter Miami. Emre Can's made that move to dormant permanent. He was definitely deserving of more minutes, so I'm glad that he's found his way out of the club. Pjanic has joined Barcelona, and Christian Romero has joined Atalanta on loan. Pretty prodigious young talent, isn't he? The only incomings, Weston McKennie from Schalke for £4 million as a loan fee, and Arthur for £64.5 million. But that was, of course, part of the wider Pjanic deal, wasn't it? He wasn't necessarily worth that money. And we do have our suspicions about that whole transfer scenario. But we haven't got a legal team, so I'm not going to go there. Overall, they've made about 17 mil in profit, although they did spend 35 million euros on Kulusevski in January. So they've still spent in a meaningful way in 2020. And I've got to say, Kulusevski, the least Swedish name I've ever heard, by the way, but he is Swedish. Kulusevski is massive for a winger. He's like 6'1". He's a physical presence and a half. Normally plays off the right. Got 10 goals and 8 assists in 36 Serie A games for Parma last campaign. His numbers were pretty good for a middling side. So 1.9 shots, 2.4 key passes, which is normally the sort of level you're looking at, you know, if you're trying to recruit an elite creator, that's the sort of metric that stands out, isn't it? 2.3 dribbles and an expected goals and assists rate of 0.48 per 90. And you would expect those numbers to spike, playing in Juventus' forward line with the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo and Paulo Dybala, wouldn't you? Weston McKennie, on the other hand, feels like a stranger pickup, but then again, didn't watch him all that much last campaign. I've got some top-line numbers for him, though. 28 Bundesliga games last season, 3 goals, 3.5 tackles and interceptions, so solid defensive output, 1.4 shots, 0.7 key passes, pretty adept dribbler for someone that sits at the base of midfield with 1.2 dribbles per 90, and he's completing around 40 passes with an 81% pass ac. So they are decent stats for a side perhaps competing in mid-table, but I'm not quite sure what Juve see in him. But then again, I'm not very well learned on him. So let's hope that he sort of proves our instincts wrong and goes on to be a big hit. And there's a lot of Americans, isn't there, that are very excited about this generation of talent. And there's a fair few of them now at top clubs. So maybe it can impact them at international level as well. But yeah, I think Juve just need to work to bring that wage bill down and more sales before any more incomings do.
Yeah, it feels like that, definitely. I think it'll be interesting, their striking situation as well, because we're hearing that Dzeko is quite close to a move as we film this, and then Milik going to Roma to replace him. There was obviously links with Suarez, but that doesn't look like it's happening now. Giroud's also been in the frame as well. But Kulusevski's, I think, really exciting.
Yeah.
Just hopefully he gets more minutes than the likes of Bernardeschi over the last couple of years, who's now potentially going out as well, or they're trying to offload him as well. So lots of big things expected from Kulusevski. Henry, let's talk about the main competition, which to my mind is Inter Milan. Are you in agreement that Inter seem like, the most likely to challenge Juve?
Yeah, I do. I agree with you again there. I mean, I think we can't overlook just how important Romelu Lukaku is going to be up front for them again next season. And obviously they've managed to hold on to Lautaro Martinez. So that's amazing. They're going into another season with their deadly strike duo. So I think it is exciting times for Inter. And if we look at the business that they've done this summer, so obviously they sold Mauro Icardi, Andrea Pinamonti and Jan Caramoa. So these are some fringe players. And they managed to collect about £73 million for these players. And actually, I've been quite critical about the players they've brought in. They brought in Kolarov for 1.4 million, which I think had all of us kind of rolling our eyes at that. I mean, he's 34. But last season, he did score 7 times for Roma. And also, he was the most successful at pressurising the opposition attackers and stuff like that. He registered the best pressure success rate. That's what I was reading. Which is quite a surprising stat for Kolarov. So, although as a long-term solution on the left flank, he joins... I think he'll join Ashley Young to make the oldest kind of combined left wing force you'll ever see. So, I mean, it's not a long-term solution, but he's still in the short term, which is obviously what Antonio Conte looks for. That's he could actually be quite a benefit there. But they have also made permanent the signings of Sensi and Barella as well. So there's some young players coming through. And obviously the really exciting signing is Achraf Hakimi from Real Madrid. I think this is an absolute steal for £36 million. He's 21 years old. We all know how good he was at Borussia Dortmund. I mean, last season he played 41 League and Champions League games, and he scored 9 goals and created 10 assists, which is nuts. If we just look at his stats a bit closer, 3 tackles and interceptions, 1.3 shots, 1.2 key passes, and the big one I think is 2.4 dribbles per 90. So he's going to be up and down that flank. He was one of the most progressive players in the whole of the Bundesliga last season, I think only behind David Alaba, and I was writing about that recently. So yeah, he could be a real star for them down that flank, and I think that's what they need. If they're going to go on the age route on the other side, I think Hakimi could really be kind of that speed down the right wing they need, and a massive step up on Victor Moses, who they have anyway. But if we look back at last season as well, they only finished 1 point behind Juventus. I mean, if we remember, they all sort of stuttered towards the end of the season in Serie A. None of them quite took the initiative. At one point, Atalanta could have gone for it. At another point, Inter could have gone for it. But they all sort of fell off. But they only finished 1 point behind, which is good. They hit 82 points, which is the same as what they got in their treble-winning campaign in 2009-10. Another point we should make is that they only lost 4 league games, which is the best record in the league. That's 2 fewer than the next best, Atalanta. So they were solid. They did draw quite a lot. But the thing that Antonio Conte has been looking for is that energy throughout the whole season. I think they really struggled to maintain the kind of velocity that he looks for in his sides. I wrote a scout report about Inter Milan to do with their form before and after December. And there was a massive drop-off in the 10 games before December and the 10 games after December, where players like Brozovic began to be more sloppy on the ball, wasn't able to get in the positions he wanted to as often as he had been. And that's just because the lack of depth they had, particularly in the midfield, meant that they were often sort of running out of steam as kind of the demanding way that Antonio Conte, I think it's called the Grinta mentality, I think that's what it's called. But yeah, they really struggled to sort of meet his demands the longer the season went, which is why I think, although Arturo Vidal, it's another bit of a silly signing again, in many people's opinion, when they could have signed Sandro Tonali. He would still provide them with that energy in the midfield to keep going, at least in the short term anyway. So I think it is really exciting for Inter Milan still. They've got Conte back on board for another season. They've made some solid additions to the squad, some young, some old. And yeah, I think I'm not overly keen on the business that Juventus has done. I think the most exciting part of their summer is bringing in that Swedish winger again, Kulusevski. I think that's going to be really exciting. But the rest of that, I think Inter Milan, if they can sustain the energy which they approached the beginning, certainly of Serie A last season, if they can sustain that the whole way through, and if he can keep harmony in the squad, I think, Alexis Sanchez could get back to his best. You never know with him. I think it could be really exciting. But yeah, I mean, as we'll look at the rest of the teams in Serie A, it's going to be a really mixed season, I think. But Inter Milan is certainly up there.
Absolutely. And, Christian Eriksen will have longer to adapt. There's already rumours that it's not going so well for him and Conte. There was talk about Skriniar leaving. That doesn't look like it's going to happen either. So Inter Milan, I would say, are in a pretty good place. And it seems like Conte, with the signing of Vidal rather than Tonali. It's just being like, this is our year, we're going to win the league this year. I don't really care about the long-term project of the club. I'm here to win, which is Conte's mentality. Chris, another team that we've got to put in the mix and talk about is Atalanta. Now, Atalanta really came to sort of Europe-wide attention last year with their run in the Champions League, but you and Pat mainly have been banging the drum for them for years, I would say. I mean, do you feel like this year they could finally go one step further?
Yes, I have banged on about Atalanta, Dougs, and for very good reason. I firmly believe they should have won a Scudetto, at least under Gasperini. They've played the best football in Italy in the past 3 or 4 seasons. He's consistently turned league average players into absolute worldies. There's been various junctures of the season they've averaged over 3 goals a game, sort of on a par with Bayern Munich, PSG, and you don't necessarily see that breakneck play in Serie A. He's kind of challenged the whole culture at the top of that league, and as such, I would love to see them win the league. However, do have my reservations this time round. It feels like that opportunity may have slipped through their fingers, not necessarily their own doing, because they're overperforming given how much they're paying the squad and how much they can spend on talent in the summer. Just to give you some perspective, I think their wages are around 13th in the league, but they're consistently up there, aren't they? Obviously, Ilicic was instrumental at various points throughout last campaign. It did drop off when he kind of experienced personal problems off the field, bless him, towards the end of the season. And his physical kind of form is not great. It's kind of deteriorating a little bit as time goes on. I mean, he's had a renaissance in recent years, but he is known as grandma in and around Bergamo because he's consistently injured or because he wants to come off after 45 to 60 minutes. So whether or not he'll be able to replicate that same form is difficult to tell. So they're gonna have to bring in some influential players, or someone's gonna have to really step up to fill that void. I mean, last season, topped the table for expected points. They scored 98 league goals, 18 more than Inter Milan. They had the 5th best defence throughout. They conceded around the same amount of goals as 10th place Fiorentina. So, sure, they can shore up at the back, but I'm not sure I want them to change, to be perfectly honest. The summer so far been pretty quiet. Castagna and Mancini have left for Leicester and Roma for a combined £33 million. I think they bought Castagna for $5 million from Genk. So to turn that much profit on him, considering the limited amount of minutes he's played, is fantastic business from Atalanta. I think it's not that I think Leicester have been scalped, but I think that's a very good deal. Considering, Pasalic, who's been great for them, has come in for 13 mil. Christian Romero has come in from Juventus, the highly rated centre-half we were referencing earlier. And Miranchuk has come in from Lokomotiv Moscow for around 13. I don't know much about him. Can't say I watch a lot of Russian football, other than he's a 24-year-old attacking midfielder, contributed 15 goals in 27 Russian Premier League games last campaign. He's got at least 8 goal contributions for the past 4 seasons, so he's maybe been one whose stock has kind of been in the ascendancy, and it looks like he can take that step up. Gasperini generally has a very good nose for attacking players, doesn't he? In 1920, his stats were, qualified him for a move. 3.1 shots per 90, 2.7 key passes, almost 2 dribbles, an expected goals and assist value of 0.8. So maybe he is the Ilicic replacement, or maybe he's Papu Gomez's long-term heir. Who knows? But I'm excited about their chances, but if they can get anywhere near the same sort of level as they did last campaign, then they'd have done really, really well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Chris. Atalanta, I think, are many neutrals' favourites in Serie A, and maybe not potential title winners this year, but what a journey they take us on, and so many goals, so much great attacking football. You might have noticed I've got a slightly different setup now. I've got a different headphone in. That's because I'm now we've had some technical issues, to put it lightly, and I'm now having to listen to a WhatsApp call to hear the others. But anyway, we'll carry on as if nothing has happened, because for each of these leagues, we wanted to talk about potential dark horse. And for Serie A, it's got to be AC Milan, to my money. Obviously, they finished the season exceptionally well. They only lost 2 of their final 20 league games. They went unbeaten post-lockdown, but still finished 12 points off fourth place Lazio, which just goes to show how poor their first half of the season was. So in terms of winning the title, probably a step too far, but definitely a top 4 challenge this year. And they've done some interesting business, actually. They've made an £18 million profit by selling Suso, Andre Silva and Ricardo Rodriguez. And they've brought in some exciting players as well. Sandro Tonali, who we've already touched upon. Alexis Selemakers, the right wing-back as well. Pierre Kalulu, Simon Kjers come in permanently. Brahim Diaz on loan from Real Madrid. And crucially, Ante Rebic, who was so crucial to them last year. With 11 goals and 3 assists in 26 games, although I think only about 15 of those were starts, so it was absolutely crucial towards, not even towards the back end, because it was really in the pre-Zlatan times, it was Rebic who was their main source of goals. And in terms of best signing for the league, we're going to do this for each of the leagues as well. It's difficult to look past Hakimi, really, although I do think Rebic is a great capture, and I'm excited to see what Vedat Mariki can do at Lazio as well. £16 million capture from Fenerbahce. He was superb last year. 15 goals and 5 assists for Fenerbahce, as I said. Osimhen's probably the biggest talking point for Napoli, coming in for over £70 million as well. But that seems like a hell of a lot of money for a guy with one exceptional season in a top 5 league, although he was very unfortunate with injuries at Wolfsburg before. But anyway, we've done a lot on Serie A. Now let's move over to La Liga. Because after a pretty tight battle all season long last year, Real completely pulled away after lockdown with 10 wins out of 11 games, while Barcelona lost 1 and drew 3 and ended up finishing 5 points behind Los Blancos. Atleti, took a massive drop off. They finished with 70 points, their lowest since 2011-12, only scoring 51 goals, which was their lowest since 2006-07. Sevilla finished 4th for the first time in 3 years, but mainly the big talking point in La Liga last year was the sort of underdogs, really. Granada, Getafe, Osasuna, all finishing in the top half. So we'll see whether that trend continues this season. But Chris, in terms of a potential winner, can you go for anyone else other than Real Madrid?
No, and as such, I'll keep this short because it's painfully uninteresting at the top at the minute, isn't it? Real Madrid have their shit together and Barcelona don't, and I think that is going to decide the league next campaign. Barcelona, they've done okay this window, haven't they? Arthur, Carlos Perez, Cucurella leaving for around £85 million. Rakitic and Arda Turan have obviously departed the club as well. They may get a fee for Rakitic depending on certain criteria being met. They've spent £92 million bringing in Pjanic. Trincao, who is an exciting signing, bit of an unknown entity, but the profile of player we want them to go for, right? These risks between 20 and 30, which might pay off in the long term. And if they don't, guess what? You sell them on for the same money you bought them for because you're Barcelona and you can command that fee, even if a player's failed. I mean, look at Malcolm from Bordeaux. They've also bought Pedri and Mateo Fernandez through as well. And they're expected to be joined by Memphis Depay, aren't they? Which is a really exciting signing. I think he profiles well for most sides. We've used him as glue, as a quick fix for every top team across Europe in the podcasts, whether it be Sunday Vibes, Continental Club. And now he's got his big move. It is time to shine for Memphis Depay. Arturo Vidal is also expected to leave, so that frees up some wages. Luis Suarez now looks as if he'll stay. Of course, he's still on £15 million per annum. That move to Juventus not happening because he wanted a payoff, didn't he? He wanted a payoff because if he meets certain criteria this season, it triggers a 1-year extension. So he has 2 years earning potential left to consider before departing the club. And obviously, there's no real point bringing Messi into this because we want to keep the episode under 50 minutes. So, yeah, I think it's more interesting talking about dark horses because there's been a little bit of a challenge to Atletico's status as the dark horse by Lopetegui's Sevilla, hasn't there? But Atletico Madrid probably still up there. I don't know what you boys think.
Yeah, I mean, Atletico Madrid have definitely got some questions to answer after their display last year. I mean, Henry, could you see them maybe breaking back into the top 2?
I mean, it can only... I honestly think it can only be better than what happened last year. I think they can only improve. I feel like the conditions are right for an Atletico dodgy kind of championship push, if that makes sense.
Love that.
The top teams are fading a little bit. I think this is when they could really kind of steamroll in with the Simeone style. But yeah, I mean, if we look at the back end of last season, they won 7 of their final 11 games after the lockdown to actually finish third, level on points with Sevilla. So they really got into the momentum towards the back end of the season, and they actually started scoring some goals. As you mentioned earlier, Dougie, they really struggled to score, but they did go and beat Osasuna 5-0 and Mallorca 3-0. If we look at their business in the market, it's not particularly inspiring. I mean, they've obviously were forced into paying the additional 50 plus million for Morata, and they've made Carrasco's move back from Dalian in China permanent. So that's cost them £74 million, a lot of money for 2 obviously big name players, but susceptible whether or not they're actually going to be the star power to push the team on. But we'll see. I mean, there's talk of Morata maybe going back to Juventus. Potentially, apparently he's interested in a reunion with Pirlo. So you never know what could happen there. But I do think they probably need a new attacking option if they are going to really push on. However, if we look further down the team, João Felix, he can only improve as well. He got 7 goal contributions in 27 league games. And consider they spent over 100 million euros on him. It has to be better, but he was young, and I think given time he really still could become the player they're looking for. He also scored his first goal for Portugal in the recent Nations League fixtures as well, and he looked really sharp in those games too, which will only be good for him going on. Also, Marcos Llorente was playing really well. I think that was a really good steal to have pinched him from Real Madrid the way they did. And yeah, I mean, it is exciting to see what could happen. I feel another year of their new back line working together again. Trippier he performed it was mixed bags. I think some Atletico fans would say he wasn't great. Some would say he was a solid addition. But Lodi as well, I think they could, with another season, they could look really solid. But yeah, looking at the other dark horses, which you've mentioned, if we quickly go over Sevilla, I'm excited to see what Sevilla do. I mean, they played so well under Lopetegui last year. They became really hard to beat. They maybe didn't score loads. They weren't that flashy in attack, but they were really hard to beat, and that's an important asset across the season. They've added Suso, who, Dougie, I know we're not 100% convinced that the money they paid for him is the right amount of money they should have, but I think their hands were forced in that situation because they won Europa League, so they had to pay that amount from AC Milan. But he could still be decent. But I love the signing of Oscar Rodriguez from Real Madrid. I think that's wicked. He played so well for Leganes as they went down last season. He's just been put into the Spanish national side, and he scored 9 times last year. So that will give them the kind of impetus in midfield they need. And Rakitic, I still think is a really solid signing. But if we just look at Villarreal, I think they're the most exciting team to look out for in La Liga this year. Unai Emery, rightly or wrongly, has come in and taken over as coach. They finished 10 points off the UCL positions in 1920 in 5th, but some of the additions they've made are exciting. Coquelin and Dani Parejo, we've talked about that a lot on EFD, how much of a good signings that pair could be. Dani Parejo, one of the most underrated midfielders in the whole of Spain. He's been consistently at the top level for about 10 years now. And then Kubo as well from Real Madrid. That's a really exciting loan signing. We'll be able to see him really step up from his time at Mallorca last season. And I don't know too much about Pervis Estupinan, who they've just bought for 14.7 million. But yeah, apparently he killed it for Osasuna last year on loan from Watford. 4.3 tackles and interceptions, 1.3 key passes, and 1.8 dribbles. He never even played a game for Watford, and they've sold him for well over 14 million, which is pretty impressive by then. But yeah, also just quickly to touch on Barcelona, before we came onto this call, I was reading about their... they just had a pre-season friendly with Girona, which took place on Wednesday evening, and they beat them 3-1. And, I mean, it was in Marcus to say what you want about that, but apparently it was really positive. They've brought back Coutinho into the centre of that sort of attacking hole, and Trincao looked really solid as well. So you never know, really. I think, and I was reading that apparently they are enjoying their time on Ronald Koeman. The only issue is at the moment that they haven't actually agreed a severance package with Kike Setien. So it's not even sure if Ronald Koeman is going to be allowed to be on the touchline for their first game when that comes around. But yeah, so it's one of these things where it's sort of a seesaw with Barcelona, but currently, apparently it's a really good feelings in the camp at the moment, and they are playing well and winning their pre-season friendlies. But yeah, I think it's really exciting. Maybe not as exciting as Serie A, but I think the underdogs again could really push the big boys again this season.
Absolutely. I think there's been some really good signings from the slightly sort of tier 2 clubs, I'd say, the Villarreals, the Sevillas, etc. Barcelona, a bit of an unknown entity. Chris, in terms of best signings in the league, I mean, who would you go for? It's been a weird summer in that Real Madrid and Barcelona have had quite a quiet time.
Yeah, well, now I'm just wondering if Henry's a mouthpiece for Barcelona, if he's taking a bung on the side to help spread this positivity. I mean, Girona are in the second division, mate. Beating them 3-1 at pre-season is not a sign of good times to come.
No, I no. The point remains that
you've been
the
paid
general
off.
feeling in the camp. What it's saying is that apparently they're enjoying the training under Ronald Koeman. Apparently he's got a bit more of a rigid system, and if he's bringing back some of these players like Coutinho, and if he's blooded in Trincao quickly, that can only be a positive sign. So you
And you know what? He actually does have a record, Ronald Koeman, of there's a good bounce generally under him for the first 6 months at the very least. But I mean, last time he was in La Liga was with Valencia, right? I think he did win a cup, but he also finished with a worse win percentage across all competitions than Gary Neville. So I remain unconvinced that he is the man. But it's nice to see a little bit of, I was generally more pro Barca than Real Madrid. It's nice to see the dust settle a little bit because we don't want Real running away with it, do we? And I am excited about Trincao. He arrived from Braga. 8 goals and 6 assists for them in the 1920 campaign. Didn't clock up all that many minutes. It was a solid amount, but I think it equated to a goal contribution every 115 minutes. So pretty decisive in that sense. I think we should also probably look out for Marcos Acuna he's bought from Sporting by Sevilla for around 11 million. He's bought as a Reguilon replacement, but can, a little bit like Hakimi, can kind of play in a more advanced position as well. In 24 appearances in 1920, he got 2 goals, 1 assist, 3.2 tackles, interceptions, 2.1 key passes, 1.2 dribbles. So they're very much on a par with what Reguilon's output was. And the year before, he actually contributed to 10 league goals. So he has a good bit of pedigree in the Liga NOS, and some exceptional fullbacks have come out of the Liga NOS in recent years, haven't they? Despite everyone kind of putting it down to an extent. But yeah, I don't really want to go over the big money signings. I think you boys have done that. So I think the best signing is probably Dani Parejo. Like, how a club legend can leave after 9 years on a free, on a Zoom call from his living room while he's crying, and then go to your regional rivals who have had a renaissance in the last season. How that has been allowed to happen is absolutely shocking. He wanted to renegotiate. His deal was about 90k a week. He wanted to renegotiate because Valencia wanted him off the wage bill. That was the party line anyway. But I think they just wanted him out because he was probably just such a big supporter of Marcelino. And it obviously got very personal with Peter Lim, Murphy and Marcelino towards, the start of the 1920 campaign, didn't it? So I think he's exited the club for the wrong reasons. And he posted some great results in like he was like the 4th most progressive passer in La Liga last campaign. He was carrying on their back, and if he can have that same effect for Villarreal, he could maybe consolidate them as the Europa League side. So yeah, I'm going to go for Parejo, but I am excited by Trincao.
Absolutely, and it feels like Unai Emery, big season ahead for him, bit of redemption hopefully to rebuild his sort of tattered reputation after a pretty damaging last 6 months at Arsenal. So that's La Liga. Let's move on to the Bundesliga, because that also resumed this weekend. And obviously, we've got to start with Bayern Munich, because I mean, what a turnaround really. They lost 2 of their opening 4 games under Hansi Flick. They were 7th, and then they went unbeaten through their next 20 league games, drawing just once at home to RB Leipzig in a 0-0. Obviously then completed the treble. They won every single Champions League game. They scored 43 goals in 11 games. They've added Leroy Sané to their squad for a very reasonable €45 million. 45 million euros, I should say, sorry. They have sold Thiago to Liverpool. But with Cuisance, Tolisso, Goretzka, they do have some depth in there. Maybe they'll dip into for another central midfielder, but I feel like they might just stick with it. And they've obviously lost Coutinho and Perisic, who were on loan as well. So maybe they'll sign another wide player as well. They've picked up some sensible free transfers as well. Alexander Nubel, very highly rated at Schalke, although had a pretty disappointing last 12 months there. And Tanguy Nianzou, on a free from PSG, who I don't know a lot about, but is apparently very highly rated as well. So it's difficult to look past Bayern. But Henry, how is the sort of competition shaping up in the Bundesliga this year?
I agree with you in the sense that whereas the other leagues, I think the other teams could push the sort of normal winners, I'm not convinced that anything is really going to change this season. I don't think that Dortmund or the likes of Leipzig have really massively improved to the point where they can even come close to challenging Bayern. I think Bayern won the window again in that regard. But anyway, let's look at them anyway. So Dortmund finished 13 points off Bayern last season. They sort of ran them close for a bit, but then just completely faded away. And their tally of 69 points was 7 fewer than they managed in 18-19, despite scoring 3 more goals and conceding 3 fewer. Their business in the market's been all right, I suppose. Emre Can's come in for 25 million euros. I think he's a pretty solid addition in the middle. Maybe an upgrade on Thomas Delaney. And yeah, Jude Bellingham as well. He arrived for 26 million euros. Massive fan of that move already. He's already looking like he's enjoying his time there. I think he became the youngest goal scorer in their history, I believe, when he scored in the 5-0 victory over Duisburg in the DFB Pokal. So it looks like he's really just taken to that move, and I think that can only be a good thing for all concerned. I love the signing of Thomas Meunier on a free. I think that really says a lot more about me than maybe...
no, mate,
I'm glad you said it rather than me.
I'm right behind that.
I think he's actually really solid, and he did improve PSG when he played. I think he was massively undervalued at PSG. They conceded fewer when he was on the pitch. They scored more when he was on the pitch, and they won more games when he was on the pitch. I think he's a really solid professional footballer. 28 years old. Apparently, him and Bellingham have developed a really nice friendship as well. Apparently, he drives Bellingham to and from the training ground, which is quite cool. Quite a nice little story.
I love a niche friendship like that. It's like Kieran Tierney and Nicola Pepe are now best friends. It's just so random.
Oh, really?
It just works.
Yeah, I think Ben Chilwell and Ziyech are kind of buddies.
Okay.
Which is, yeah, it's fun. But yeah. So obviously Thomas Meunier, Gio Reyna, I think he's going to be really someone to watch this season. They still have that kind of ridiculous depth of young attacking players as well. And Haaland, I mean, his goals for Norway recently were off.
Against Northern Ireland.
Absolutely.
They're off the flipping chart,
yeah,
mate.
unbelievable. If they can just feed him properly next season, I think he could do some real damage. I think he could push Lewandowski close for that top goal scorer. But if we look at Leipzig quickly, they only lost 4 league games, which is pretty good, but they did draw 12 times. Last season, they did score 18 more goals than in 18-19, but conceded 8 more, and they finished the same points tally. I think it's a big bonus that they've held on to Konate at centre-half, but losing Timo Werner is huge. I mean, 36 goal involvements. It's tricky to replace that. And also Patrick Schick as well. I think we'll discuss that in a minute. He's gone to Bayer Leverkusen, as they couldn't apparently afford to bring him in. I do like the signing of Hwang Hee-chan from RB Salzburg. He's already scored a few goals for them in pre-season in the DFB Pokal. And then Benjamin Heinrichs has arrived on loan from Monaco too. So he's a 23-year-old young fullback who can also play on the left or right. So these are like typically kind of exciting signings from Leipzig who will probably come to fruition in a few years' time. But I don't think their squad's probably better than it was last season. Although I will say I think Dani Olmo could be a real star to watch this season. I think he's had half a season to get used to his new surroundings, and he did look really good. I think next season, without Timo Werner around, could be the season where Olmo really comes to the fore and pushes that team on. So that's exciting. But yeah, on the whole, I would suggest that it's going to be more of the same come next season with a comfortable Bayern victory.
Yeah, it's a bit annoying about RB Leipzig. I think maybe their funds just didn't stretch in these weird times to sort of adequately replace Timo Werner, although maybe that's a bit harsh on Hwang Hee-chan, but you know, they've done well, as you said, to keep hold of Konate, Upamecano, Mukiele, some of their young defenders. You know, Sabitzer, Konrad Lehmer as well. So we'll see from RB Leipzig, but I think third or second probably once again. Chris, in terms of dark horses, Bayer Leverkusen look like they've probably taken a step back. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, sorry, before I move on, I think that Leipzig should just sign Szoboszlai from Salzburg. He is an absolute baller in the making, isn't he? And no one has really moved for him in a meaningful way this campaign. Of course, only 19 still, so it's a little bit raw, but did have a great season at Liefering beforehand, so I feel like he's primed for a move, and maybe they should take a gamble on him. Anyway, moving on to your question, because I think it's right to redress this question, to pivot it, like you said. There's no point discussing a dark horse in terms of who can challenge for the league title, because second place in the Bundesliga, whoever finishes second is still a dark horse, aren't they? So let's discuss who could potentially challenge for that fourth spot now that Bayer Leverkusen have dropped off slightly. I mean, losing Havertz, losing Volland is going to have a big impact on them. They did bring in £85 million. They used 24 of that to buy Schick, who is kind of, I mean, he's yet to prosper at Roma, at Leipzig. He does have talent, undoubted talent. Let's hope he really hits the ground running for Leverkusen. And apparently they do want Kolasinac as well. I'm not sure where that plays into it, but it's just something we've heard on the grapevine. So yeah, I think Gladbach are probably going to wrap up 4th spot. They've kept their big guns together, Thuram, Player, and Bolo, Elvedi, Zakaria, and they've added Lazaro, who of course didn't have the best spell on loan at Newcastle, but Inter Milan obviously saw something in him a couple of years ago. So let's hope that Peter Bosz can get the best out of him. Hertha Berlin might shock some people potentially. They finished 10th in 1920, having been in 16th after 13 games, so they finished really, really strongly. And they've got some really exciting forward-thinking players, haven't they? Particularly Matheus Cunha. I remember profiling him when he was at Sion, and it's great to see him sort of fulfill that potential he undoubtedly had. They've, of course, picked up the gunslinger, Piatek, Lucas Toussaint, Dodi Lukebakio, who we sort of championed while he, in his first loan spell in Germany from Watford, he was superb, wasn't he? And Santiago Asasibar, who I think arrived from Stuttgart. Am I right in saying that? Yeah, defensive midfielder. Yeah. Again, someone that's actually cropped up on the podcast before. He had really, really good defensive numbers. Argentinian player. And Hertha Berlin have also added Jean Cordoba, who got 15 goal contributions in 29 Bundesliga games last campaign. So they now have a strike force of Cunha, Piatek, Lukebakio and Cordoba, which says to me they are prepared to challenge for Europa League football. So that chasing pack is getting stronger in Germany, and that's what we want to see. It's just that, like Henry said, Bayern Munich, no let up from them in that regard. In terms of best signing, just to wrap off this section, it feels like Leroy Sané for an initial 41 million has got this wrapped up right. I don't know what you boys think. I don't think anything comes close.
Yeah, no, it's got to be. I think he's one of the signings of the summer just throughout Europe, to be honest. I mean, still so young, so much potential. You know, he's not even potentially reached his peak yet, and he was, producing 20 goal involvements in the Premier League for 2 years in a row. Then did his ACL. If he recovers well from that. My only slight worry about Leroy Sané is that actually the link up with Alphonso Davies on the left back, bombing forward, was so effective last year, cutting into that byline. I just wonder whether that's slightly the same role that Leroy Sané will play. But if they can, find, good telepathy between each other, which you'd expect because they're both good players, then, there's no real reason to worry. So I can only see Bayern really winning the Bundesliga. But we're going to do all our predictions in terms of title winners in just a second. But we've got to touch on France. Obviously, it's been a bit of a weird start. PSG have lost both of their opening games. They've got a squad decimated by coronavirus. They've had 2 players or 3 players sent off last week against Marseille in the game that we previewed last week on Big Match Preview. But let's put PSG aside for 1 second, because I think we all expect that they're going to win Liga. Let's talk about some of the other teams and some of the business they've done. Lille, it's obviously been a busy window for them. Gabriel's gone, Victor Osimhen has gone. Big pressure on Jonathan David, who's come in from Ghent, only 20-year-old Canadian striker. 12 goals and 4 assists in 18-19. And then last year took a massive step up, 25 goal involvements in 27 league games in Belgium.
He's not been good at the start of this season.
No, I remember watching him against Reims a couple of weeks ago, and he just looks a little bit cumbersome up top. It's going to take him a while to get on the same wavelength as Kone and Jonathan Bamba, but big pressure on him. Monaco, who we've talked about just a couple of weeks ago, so won't go into them. They've done some good business as well. Volland, Disasi, Kai Henrique as well. I like the signing of Hassan Kamara by Nice as well. I mean, Guri's coming from Lyon for them as well. And then Rennes have signed Martin Terriot. So the sort of chasing pack have done some quite interesting business. So we'll see what the race is for Champions League football in France again. Obviously, Lyon will be looking to sort of re-establish themselves back in the top 4 this year as well. But before we go into our quick-fire questions, and we want to wrap up this section. It's been pretty detailed. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, but I just want one word from each of you about who is going to win each league. Let's start in Serie A. I'm going to go Inter Milan. Chris, do you agree?
I'm going to say Atalanta just to be an optimist. Come on, Ledea.
The hipster choice. Henry, what do you reckon?
I'm with you, Diggs. I think Inter. But I'd like to see AC do well. Zlatan's going to bang in 15, I'm telling you.
And I think the most boring question, Bundesliga, I'm going Bayern. Chris?
Yeah. Bayern.
Henry?
Yeah, no
I
contest,
imagine
Bayern.
Liga we're all going PSG as well. Let me know if, correct me right now. And then La Liga, I think it's fairly straightforward as well. I'm going Real Madrid. Chris?
Yeah, Real Madrid, but it is going to be really interesting in these various leagues. Not to be too pessimistic at the end of this, in terms of who secures Champions League football, right? So that's probably what people should be keeping their eyes on.
Absolutely. Okay, Henry, what do you reckon?
Well, my paid contract with Barcelona would mean I'd suggest them.
I knew it.
I knew it. I think it will be a lot closer than we think. I'm going to go Atletico. Why not? I'm going to go Atletico.
Nice. Okay, guys, we want your predictions in the comments down below, and also let us know your dark horses and best bits of business from each league in the comments below. And let's move on to quickfire questions. Our quickfire question comes in from @Tamish Bahal, regular contributor. Thank you, Tamish. And he has asked, after his failed transfer, where should Suarez go next? Henry, what's your suggestion for Suarez?
I said on the podcast a few weeks ago, I'd love to see him go to Atletico. I'd like him to do a David Villa sort of switch over there and have like an excellent season there. I think that'd be cool. But also, I don't know where his allegiances lie, but I'd love to see him at like a Boca Juniors. I think he'd fit in right over there at the Argentine kind of leagues there. I think that'd be cool. So yeah, Atletico or Boca for me.
Nice. Chris, what do you reckon?
That's really weird, because I was also thinking Boca Juniors, but I think you think great strikers of that age with the South American connection, and you want to see them in that famous blue and gold kit, don't you? Playing in the chocolate box stadium, like a la Carlos Tevez. That's kind of where I went with that as well. Where else could he possibly go and help? That
Liverpool
team challenge. No, I don't think he'll come back to English shores. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to stick with my gut and say Boca Juniors as well, but it's really annoying that you've called that first.
Fair. Henry got in there.
Sorry.
I'm going to think of someone a bit different. I'm actually going to go Dortmund. They actually don't really have a backup 9 to Haaland, and if Suarez comes on for the final 15 minutes of all games, don't know whether he'd be able to deal with the pace of the Bundesliga at whatever he is, 33. But what a player to bring on for the final 15 minutes, especially considering they got rid of Paco Alcacer in January, so they've only really got Haaland as a 9. So I'm going with Dortmund. But guys, where do you guys want to see Suarez go next? That's what we want to know. Or will he just stay at Barcelona? Let us know in the comments down below. And thank you very much for watching, guys. It's been an absolute marathon for us to film because of a lot of technical issues. We've been here for about 3 hours, but I hope you guys enjoyed it and it all made sense. We had numerous technical issues, as I said. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Let us know your predictions in the comments down below. And Chris, what should they go and do now?
Go and check out We Need to Talk on Football Daily, and make sure you're subscribed to the podcast channel as well. A review of the first match week in the Premier League went live on Wednesday. Absolutely. Anything from you, Henry?
Go check out Chris's one-on-one on the pool of Valencia. It takes him a long time. He's got his little chalkboard and he's writing all his ideas down. So I think he'd really appreciate your support if you go and check it out.
Absolutely. It's well worth a watch, as are all the one-on-ones. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.